G'day YouTube and welcome back to the ASX Portfolio channel. So why should you as an investor be interested in learning about the ASX? Well, essentially it's this graph right here. Look at the returns over the ASX, this All Ordinaries Index, over the last 120 years. It's returned a whopping 11.8%. So this fact alone should get you curious about what's happening in the market, what can the ASX offer me, and how can I invest? So let's jump in. So what does the ASX actually stand for? Well, the ASX stands for the Australian Securities Exchange, and this happened from the merger between the Australian Stock Exchange and the Sydney Futures Exchange in 2006. Since then, it has become one of the world's top 10 listed exchanges by market capitalization. The ASX is involved in a wide range of asset classes, from equities, fixed income, and commodities. It's also involved in trading activities that range from primary markets and actual capital raising all the way down to secondary markets and trading and settlement on the exchange. So why does the ASX even exist? Well, essentially it's a great way to place capital with investment opportunities. So simply put, if we take the equities market, we have Australian companies listing their stock on the exchange in order for investors like us to buy the shares. Now, with that invested capital, they then go away and invest in their own operations to be able to further their product, etc. And then we hope at some future point that we're going to get a benefit of either capital gains or dividends back from that investment. So it's probably crucial at this point to explain what market indices are. So essentially in 1980, the All Ordinaries index was created, and this tracks the largest 500 companies by market capitalization on the ASX. It's also used as a reference point for performance of those individual shares. So you can picture that there's 500 top companies in Australia, all with different weightings contributing to the performance of this index. So in a day, when some companies go down and up, that percentage increase and decrease is weighted in accordance with the weighting of the index. So as you can see, the index is a measure of the performance of the market. So another index that is commonly used was developed in 2000, and that's the S&P or ASX 200 index. And as you can imagine, this tracks the top 200 Australian companies by market cap. So as an investor, it's very important to know that other than pure equities, commodities, fixed income instruments, there are a number of investment products available to us. These include, but not exclusive to, the listed investment companies, LICs, infrastructure funds, A-REITs, managed funds, and exchange-traded products. Now, under exchange-traded products is the very popular product we all know, the exchange-traded funds. Now, this can be a great way to get access to some of these market indices. So who owns the ASX and where is all this invested money coming from? So to understand this, let's jump in here and see what graph I've put together. So we have the Australian national accounts from the ABS with listed shares and other equity markets. We've got pie charts here from 1988 all the way through to 2020. So I've subsectioned the equity contribution by these 5 categories. So we have the rest of the world, households, you and me, pension funds and insurance companies, other financial institutions, and private non-financial corporations and governments. Now, as you can see over time, the percentage of the household has actually decreased quite substantially. Whereas the pension funds and insurance companies have held about 30 to 34%. The rest of the world has held about 34 to 35%. And the small portion of other financial institutions and private non-financial corporations and government has increased. We're going to finish this video by talking about the Australian Investor Study that's done every year by the ASX. So we've jumped down to this chart to see how many Australians as a proportion of the society invest in ASX products. So as you can see, there's been a dramatic increase from 1986 from 9% of the population to about 35% today. So currently there stands 19.4 million Australians who invest in ASX products. As you can see from this chart, it's very interesting to look at the actual size of the portfolio of these Australian investors. So 41% of Australians have an account size less than $100,000. 25% between $100,000 and $500,000, and only 2% of Australian investors have greater than $5 million invested. I think that this is a really interesting chart to look at, and the median investment portfolio is about 130K. So this figure is really interesting because it shows the popularity of investment products, but then it also shows the median value invested in these products. So we can see that the most popular investment here held by Australian investors is by far shares, nearly up to 60%. However, we can see that the median value is quite low in comparison to the largest Australian median value investment, which is the residential investment property market. And that's kind of consistent with what we see Australians growing up with here. The last thing I wanted to show you guys was that, there is a focus on risk versus return, and most people worry about how actively engaged they need to be when they involve in these activities. So as you can see by the percentages at the bottom there, some people are viewing their stocks every day in their portfolio, some people monthly, some people weekly, and it really depends on you as the individual investor. But there is a large choice out there. There are many different investing strategies, and most of them won't need to involve daily management of that account. So hopefully you learnt a lot today about the ASX and inspired you to research further into what investment options they're going to be for you in the future. Cheers, thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content.